Genesis 18, and we talked about how Abraham was really doing the intercessory prayer on behalf of the individuals in Sodom. Well, now we're moving along with the story of Genesis 19. And in the time, I like the different titles that they put. I don't know if Bibles are different, but mine says God rescues Lot. Genesis 19 is heavy in a lot of ways. It's literally it's full of smoke, but it's full of compromise, lust, blindness, hesitations, and judgments. That's what this is full of. But it's also full of this moment of showing God's mercy at its finest too. So it's showing what happens when a city gives itself over to wickedness. Let's take in terms Sodom and let's look at America. Let's look at the world, right? What's the general propensity of America? It's turning over to wickedness. Now, there's still good in America. There's still good in the country that we live. But this moment in the Bible, it's when man, Lot, tries to live close to sin without being consumed by it. And that's powerful because in our lives, how are we living closely to sin, and we expect just because we're saved or this, that we're not going to be touched by it, but then we catch ourselves that we actually end up getting consumed by it. We got to be careful where we're at. We got to be careful but in that moment, even in this given moment of Lot, what's come rushing in? It's mercy, right? This mercy's rushing in, and it's doing things for people that don't deserve it. That's what mercy is. It's God's doing things for people that are either blinded, consumed, or don't deserve it. That's what I love about mercy, and that's why we extend mercy. It's because we've been extended mercy, so why can't we extend it outwardly? Mercy is one of those things that people struggle with, that and forgiveness, but it's all tied together. So this chapter can get really distracted by Sodom, but it's more about the human heart that's there. That's what God's looking at. So Sodom here is not, it was a place on the map. It's no longer. But this is actually one of those things that God does is he's holding up a mirror. We know about rebellion, don't we? Rebellious nature, compromise, and that spiritual confusion that happens in this moment because it's actually spiritual foolishness. Lot walked with Abram, the father of faith, right? He decided he wanted to go his own way. And we talked about where he picked the path he picked because it was lush, it was green, it was right, but it was a bad choice. He was focused on the wrong thing. In this moment, even though if there's spiritual foolishness or this compromise and all these things, judgment will happen. But in that moment, God shows a characteristic and attribute of who he is, and that's mercy, which mercy is attached with what? Love. Right? And so in this moment, on the app, there's an outline. It's a full detailed outline that I put out there. I'm just going to read this real quick. So you guys, if you don't have that pulled up, sin becomes shameless when God's rejected. Compromise destroys spiritual strength. Mercy often has to drag us where grace is leading us. I'll say that again. Mercy often has to drag us where grace is leading us. The judgment is real, it's final, and is deserved, and looking back reveals where the heart truly lives, and God can restore the righteous even from the corrupt. So I'm going to ask someone to get us started in chapter 19, reading verses 1 through 11 for me. My Bible says that not sex, but may know them. That's just a more... says sex, right? I thought that I underlined that.
I need it to be direct.
Yeah. So I may know them. Sex. Let's start at the beginning. Let's go back. So where is Lot sitting? At the gate. Why does that matter?
Because he's looking for him. Maybe.
So you saying Lot so Lot's sitting at the gate because he's looking for somebody? Okay. What's another take that we can look at this? Why does it matter that starts off saying that he's sitting in the gate of Sodom? It dawned on me while I was writing this, and
Well, at the gate is where everything happens. People come in, and it's the social.
there you go. Closer to being out. That's one way of looking at it. That's not the way I looked at it, but that's a good way of looking at it. social at the gate, looking at maybe your way out, maybe. Way the Bible describes it in this moment is, if we know how gates operate, is it's a social peace. It's a settling in, who's coming and going from the town. It's actually him being settled within Sodom, that he has ranks within Sodom, even though he's a sojourner, that he's still accepted. And so here, he has influence because he's in the gate. He's looking at, maybe seeing who's coming and going. And maybe you're right. Maybe he's looking on like, I should have not came here and that could be, but he had the freedom to go at any time. He wasn't a prisoner. Who's saving who here? Is God saving him for what's about to come? He don't know this. So that lets me believe that he's there with comfort. He's compromised to the sin, and he has this moment that this wicked lifestyle has been integrated into his life. And sometimes we don't even realize that happens, and we catch ourselves, we're sitting at the gate in our lives, and all this wickedness and sin, these compromising moments, is so embedded into our life that we don't see. Okay? Usually angels come in the Bible to do what?
Some kind of news.
Bring a message, right? Bring a message, and sometimes it's to get them out of comfort zones too. And usually in the Bible, how are angels greeted by us humans? Yeah, don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. Holy cow, that's what angel. I have a book here that says they're angelic white robes. Oh my gosh.
Shot up the door.
I don't know if I would. I know I definitely wouldn't offer my daughters up versus these men. However, I'm not perfect. So these men surrounded the house, and they're old and young, and all these people were sitting there, and think about these angels arriving, and Lot invited them to his home. I think that's an admirable thing. Like, Lot, come to my home. And as they get there, the town, what do? They surround this house, and they're not surrounded just by this set group of people. It was the whole town mixture. Young and old, whole population. What's that show us? So we have this divine moment. Angels were invited to Lot's house, and you have the whole population surrounded this house. What's that show us in this moment? It's corruption. It's corruption, and how deep this corruption exists in this town. This here should confirm that intercessory prayer on Abraham. What if there's 40 or 50 or 30 or 25, and God keeps going if there's one, right? Because it's that corrupted and that far gone to where this town, this city, was actually a pocket of evil. Okay? This pocket of evil was so bad that their culture, that's what they identified as, to the point to where, what were they demanding the visitors to do?
Come out so they could sleep with them.
Yeah, come out so they can have sex with them.
The whole population.
The whole population. And so this wasn't just a lustful moment, right? We see where lust can come in. This is actually in Sodom. Yeah, in Sodom. No, this was a violent attack of humiliation. Because what did Lot do? I have 2 virgin daughters with a whole population of men. Does that make sense? He was literally going to send his daughters out to a death sentence. We know the story of the concubine, and we haven't got to it yet, but you probably heard the story of the concubine that got raped repetitively and to the point she died. Right? So Lot was literally willing to send his daughters out to a death sentence, which doesn't make it right, and that seems a little off, but these are holy individuals that the city is wanting to rape. Angels. And so in that moment of just gravity and despair, this despair moment is like, oh, these angels, the hosts of God, or my daughters. Which I think, looking back, Lot was like, that was such a bad moment. I would never send my daughters out to these men, But in that moment, take my daughters, virgin daughters. He's trying to plead with this wickedness, this evil population he's trying to plead with. And that's what happens, is because when sin becomes compromised, we become complacent, and guess what sin does? It grows. I mean, it continues to get more leverage to the point that it's bold. Like, I'm going to defy what's happening because I've been with this sin so long. So I have no problem with, had a conversation last night with Emily. How can someone just murder someone they love? Because sin and compromise has grown so deep that it become corrupted with evil that they no longer have attribute or vision of who God is in their life. And so that's a natural, just moment when they play God, right? And so they're choosing death over one as punishment or control. And what happens in this moment is we're rejecting God. And when we reject God long enough, our conscience gets seared. It really starts to get discombobulated in our head. And that's when evil stops hiding. You know, we see the news all the time. We see all these horrific things that people are doing. And we're sitting like, how can they? You know, as us, and I feel like most of us in this room are pretty innocent in the sense of like, but like, how can this person just, or how could this kid go into school? How can this kid do this to other kids? Or how could this? Because there's a evil that happened that disrupted something, and there was a hurt that happened that seared their conscience. And what we've seen statistically is a lot of school shooters are kids that grow up without what? Fathers. Fathers. And Roman 1, it kind of talks about this same truth we're visiting on here is people reject the knowledge of God, and what does God give them over to? Okay. So that doesn't mean he approves of this. Get that clear, because a lot of people will sit there, well, God's just giving them over to this way of living, and that's going to cause more problems for us Christians. Why don't he just take them, blah, 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 and destroy them? God's allowing that sickness to ripen into what really is. And once again, who's the one they're attacking truly? God. Right? We might be the bystanders in some of this war and this point, but society casts God off, then we become Sodom. It becomes we think we're free. So when we hear this, I'm going to live the way I want to live. I can't wait to turn 18 because I want to live outside of your rule and your thumb and your guidance. And I want to do me. And guess where that leads you down to? Freedom, right? You're free to choose the decisions. You're free to eat 16 boxes of whatever you want, or go and do whatever you want. And you're free to act away, and you're free to cuss, and you're free. It's not this boy I'm talking about here. He's an angel. He's an amazing young man. But I don't want y'all looking at Kayla like, how dare you? Damn him to hell. No, he's a fine young man. I'm more talking about the way I was. And I want to do what I want to do. But that only created the savage of wickedness in me. It was unrestrained at this point. Will someone read for me? Well, let me go back real quick. So the pressures of the world it's around us everywhere, isn't it? But don't let culture rename what God's already judged. Because if we had Sodom today, which a lot of cities, a lot of people's lives look this way, we rename it as that's politically or socially correct. There's nothing new under the sun. We know this through Ecclesiastes. There's the same amount of, there's a kid here, but sexual things that happen with the Roman population too. So the man-on-man thing is not necessarily a new thing, but it was the boldness and the gravity in which they came as a whole unity, young and old men. Bring those two guys out so we can sleep with them. That's a defiance of, they knew Lot was a godly man. I don't know if they knew if these two men were angels, per se. So someone read verses 6 through 8 for me. So here, Lot wasn't a Sodomite. He was not from Sodom, but he allowed Sodom to get into him. Because look, Lot walked with Abraham for years and years and years and years. So he allowed Sodom to get into his way of believing. And this is a warning for all believers, is we got to be careful of what, we could be saved and still be deeply compromised. Like, you can be saved, but your life is deeply compromised, and we can say we belong to God, and we can still make these foolish and cowardly decisions, right? That's the surrendering every day. That's picking up your cross daily. But the more we live to the sin, the more we compromise the sin, and the more we say, guess what? God's going to be okay with this sin. No, he's not. It's always going to come to light, and it's always going to be judged. And that's where we got to be careful, is because this is where we get hyper grace from. We're Christians and we're saved by the grace of God and what Jesus has done on the cross, but yet we're going to profane that works by going against that works. You're going to pitch your tent near Sodom, and long enough, once again, you're going to allow Sodom to get into you all. And that's what's going to start furnishing your house, is the culture and the essence and the little things of Sodom. So, how many believers do you all know has 1 foot into Christ and 1 foot in the world? We see it time and time again, especially when they're a young sapling. And then that's where that compromise comes from. And so, holiness matters. All right, well, someone read, let's go through 12 through 22 for me.
Door means small.
Okay. So the angel tells Lot to do what to his family?
Go.
Gather them and go, right? What's his family, his sons-in-law, how they respond? Thought he was joking. Didn't take him seriously. And so in this moment, this is Lot, and man in this moment loses this moral authority, right? We see that they're speaking seriously about this judgment, but no one's taking him seriously. And so he tells them to go. He go. That judgment's on the doorstep. And what did it say? Lot hesitated, didn't he? He hesitated in this moment. And so the angels actually sees him and his wife, and they take him by the hand and moving them out. Like, good God, this is such a good thing. Like, come on, you're not moving like you need to. I'm trying to extend mercy. I'm trying to save you. I'm going to take you by the hands and walk you out of this town, because that's how much compromise dilutes our way of thinking. Okay. And so he's merciful to him. And I think that's one of the most powerful sentences in here, is that, Lot was not sprinting out of Sodom. You see what happens to Lot's wife. So sometimes God's mercy doesn't just invite you, it pulls you. Why do you think God is being merciful to Lot?
Abraham? Only?
Thank you, Jesus, for Abraham, for Lot's sake. God knew Lot was going to, because he chose Sodom and he lived in Sodom. He compromised with Sodom. God knew this, but the angels literally just take mercy and said, Nate, let's get you out of here. And that we're going to sit there and say, get that mistake with pruning. You said pruning in the moment hurts, when it's like, boom, but maybe that's God's mercy. Maybe that wasn't a pruning moment. Maybe that was just his mercy pulling you out of something. I hate to say, sometimes we get pulled out of a marriage we don't want to end, because it's going to hurt our kids. It's going to hurt this. It's going to hurt that. But if I stayed in that marriage and I didn't get pulled out of that marriage, then where would I be today? Miserable. I wouldn't be here. I would not be here at all. Mercy pulled me out. That I can label as pruning, and it hurts, Lord, and mope around for a minute, maybe a hot minute. But it's him extending his mercy, because I compromised with sin by not evaluating God first to see if that was the woman I was supposed to marry. That's what mercy does. So we can't despise the severe essences of mercy, grabbing your hand and pulling you out of where you don't want to be. We look at mercy sometimes as this is an interruption to our agenda. But really what that mercy is doing is saving your life, because you don't know what it's about to come. Sometimes that mercy feels like a loss, and sometimes that mercy is actually pulling you out of a place that you're content living in, which is misery. But God's pulling you out, and that's where we can come to a moment of thanksgiving. If we're content being in a place and we're being moved out of it, instead of fight it, say thank you. And allow God to search your heart to see what's ruined your life and why he's sparing your life. Will someone read verses 23 through 25 for me? Awesome. Thank you. So the Lord's raining sulfur and fire, and there's archaeology that's happening now that if you go to where Sodom is, guess what it is? Have you ever seen images of what Sodom looks like today? It's barren. It's a place of desolate. But when they do these studies and these samples and these soils, they're finding a significant amount of sulfur that shouldn't be there. That's there. And so they're proving these things, that this happened, that this once was Sodom and this is once was Gomorrah. And this is how they know, is because of what the Bible says. And the archaeologists are looking for it. And so there is no vegetation overgrowth. There's nothing. Everything's going to be wiped away. And still to this day, it's completely wiped out. The documentary I watched, the only thing that you might find living in Sodom and Gomorrah area is hyenas. And they're going through and just walking through, and that fits perfectly, right? You think of a hyena, you think of something that needs to be desolate. I don't know, Lion King kind of ruined for me, but hyenas got a bad rap in my book. They scarred me as an 11-year-old boy. But they're looking for prey, what is alive, to destroy and eat and conquer it. So, modern us in this modern context, we think this is really harsh. Like, God could have done something differently. God could have. No, he couldn't have. He couldn't. He couldn't put up with the rebellion. He couldn't put up with the wickedness of the evil. And this wasn't overnight. So that shows you God's patience. That shows you how much time did they have to come to repent and come to know God. I think Lot lived in their city. At some point, he was probably sharing who God is, the God, the Father of Abraham, right? He was probably sharing it, but at some point he probably stopped because it just feels like we're getting nowhere. And I'm speaking to myself right now. So God's patience is real, but his judgment is going to come, period. He's not going to wait forever. And the thing is he gives warning after warning. Sodom had time. He had warnings. Sodom had a witness, Lot. Lot maybe was placed there to witness to him, just like Jonah was sent to Nineveh. But there's two different outcomes. Nineveh already had a repentant heart. And Nineveh is more about Jonah's heart than theirs, because God already worked on their heart. This was more about a Lot lacking in his effort and witness, and then the judgment still comes. But I'm going to save my witness, right? It's a little different of a story. But we see, too, with Jonah, he did all this, he did what God called him to do finally. God reached out and touched the hearts of Nineveh only for them to compromise back to sin and become way worse than they ever were. Think about that. So, same God here that saves a repentant heart destroys unrepentant hearts. So if you're looking at your life, where are you unrepentant? God judges cities. He's looking at your heart. He's judging nations. He's judging you as an individual. But then one day he's going to judge the whole world through Jesus Christ. Do you know him? Right? And so after reading this, then we think about God's being real patient. We mistaken patience with permission. God's not permitting these things to happen. God's not permitting this wickedness to grow and grow and grow in the hearts of these individuals and to become impacted by the whole town. What he's doing is he's allowing the wheels of justice to happen over time. God's heart in Revelation, what's his goal in Revelation? What does he want to do? Reach every heart. Reach anyone. Right? Make sure they know. And he's not going to move or act until every tribe, tongue, and nation has been exposed to the gospel. As we see today, that YouVersion Bible app, their whole mission is to get the Bible translated in every tongue, so every tribe can get the gospel and read the Bible. Okay? They're nowhere close to being done with this. Will someone read verse 26 for me? That was more than a glance, wasn't it? Why is this so important? Okay, but what way? Women, I want to hear this from women. Men, what was the disobedience? Her body left Sodom, didn't it? It left, but her heart did. That's why we have to be careful. She's being physically led out of Sodom, but her heart inwardly was still tied to what God was doing, what he was judging. Therefore, Jesus later said, remember Lot's wife? Is that the same heart's desire that you have? He's freed you from this moment because you're free, and you say you're in Christ, but are you looking back? You've been physically freed, but is your heart still tied to the way you were? And a lot of people fall into that trap because she wanted deliverance without separation. Deliver me from where I'm at, God, but leave me here. That's a dangerous place because she wanted, in essence, a rescue without surrender. She was physically being let out, but that heart's desire was so gravitated towards what was that she's missing the moment of why. And that's why when she stopped, she loved the world more than God's obedience, right? She wasn't obedient. She was disobedient. So when we leave sin, has our body's been separated from that sin, but our heart's still reaching towards it. I see guys that fantasize with the way it was, and it's easy to do, right? But what we do often is we have this old life, but we're inwardly romanticizing with it. That's a dangerous place to be romanticized with what God freed you from. And Lord knows from that moment of my divorce, I couldn't romanticize with ever getting back with her. Because if God pulled me out with mercy, then I had to be freed from this. And I couldn't look back towards that. I had to look towards what he's going to do in my life, even with all the hurt and all the pain. Will someone read verses 27 through 29 for me? Thank you. So this does not mean necessarily that Lot deserved the rescue at all. But it gets tied back to what we talked about earlier. It means that God was faithful to his covenant of mercy, right? And God knew how to distinguish between the wicked and the righteous. That's the beautiful moment here. Abraham didn't. Abraham in his head was like, there's probably 50 righteous people there. But God understood who was righteous and who wasn't. And even though Lot was imperfect, God still saw him as righteous. How much do we hang on to that today? I'm a Christian. I'm working. I'm living my life towards God. I'm trying this God, but I'm faltering here. I'm failing here. God's going to judge me here. God's going to do this, and this, and this. We get so caught up in our mind and headspace with that we miss the moment of who God is and what he's doing in our life. God could have swept Lot away, but he didn't. And this is that moment where we have to look back at where God is tying everything into Jesus. Okay? See, God never lost one of his own. Think about this. This is crazy. God's never lost one of his own to the flood or to his judgment. That's powerful to think about. He's never lost one of his own. And so that should instill a comfort in believers and in our lives where we're at, that the world's dark, the world's corrupt, the world's collapsing in several places, but the judge of the earth and creation knows who you are. And I pray that you're his, right? So, let's finish this up 30 through 38, I believe it is. Yeah, someone finish this out for me. Awesome. Good job, Toby. Say it with confidence. Most people don't even know the difference anyways. Just say it like you own that son of a gun. So this chapter, it ends with sorrow, doesn't it? Like, this is tough. Like Lot, yeah, it's very terrible. And Lot lost his home, lost most of his family or son-in-laws. Daughters lost their husbands. He lost his wife. He lost maybe whatever peace that he may have had in that comfort or compromise. And now he's in a cave. We'll get to that. He's fearful, though. He's isolated. And now he's dishonored because of his daughter's acts. So in this, in this moment, even after escaping Sodom, the damage of Sodom still lingers, doesn't it? So in this moment, we have to look at, why did the daughters do what they did? All we do know is what the Bible tells us, that they got their dad drunk and slept with him. But what we do know from the Bible is they never did consult God about this period. So this is what happens when you take faith in your own hands. You take what you think needs to happen in your own hands, and what does it create? I underlined in Moab. What comes from Moab? Research that. That's your home. Yeah, Google it. And then the Ammonites. So out of this, in essence, a blessing in a way, because their future is secure without becoming slaves. Now you're giving birth and becoming the father of the Moabs and the Ammonites. If so, we can stop there. So these girls, without consulting God, became, in theory, the mothers of who? The family of Ruth. What came from Ruth? Jesus. Okay? So God is still blessing this act that was outside of the realm of what we see as okay, and actually became the line of imperfect that became perfect. That's a blessing, right? That's a blessing. So here, was he saved? Yes. Was he strong? No. Was he delivered? Yes. Was he healthy? No. They were sick. I don't know why God chose this path, to go this path, to turn into Ruth, to turn into Boaz, to turn into Jesse, to turn into Jesus, whatever. But it starts, well, I guess I do know why. Who did God make a covenant with? Abraham. Sodom is excellent. It shows us what sin deserves. Judgment. That's what happens today, is we got judged. But it also shows how weak the person that's considered righteous can be. So that allows us to not ever put ourselves on a pedestal. I can sit here and say, I've been a Christian for this long, and I've walked a life this good, and I've had all these good deeds, and I've served Christ, and I've been obedient, and I've withheld all these things, that we can still become weak, and we can still compromise to sin, and we can still allow that compromise to actually dilute our walk with Christ. Not our salvation, but our walk. What we've learned today is that sin is worse than we like to admit. If we really evaluated our lives and really where we're sitting at, sin is way worse than we like to admit. Judgment actually is more real than people want to believe. Don't judge me. Oh man, God is. Yeah, like at least if you misjudge me, at least I'm gonna evaluate my heart, and I'm gonna go back to Scripture and see what you have to say, and maybe it's real. And if it's not, bug off. If it's real, thank you for helping me get my life back on track. Whatever it may be, mercy is greater than we ever intend to think of or hope in. Mercy is big. It's big. We do not need to laugh at the warnings given. We do not need to hesitate when he tells us to go. We do not need to look back and play with what he's freed us from. Okay? We need to flee to Christ, not a cave. In the moments of what we go through, we run to Christ and everything, because judgment stands, and it will always stand. But if we're in Christ, only mercy will reflect. Does that make sense? That's a beautiful moment. So with that, God's never mocked. You can surround our house and say, bring out your men, but God's never mocked. And sin impacts future generations, not just you. God's righteous in his judgment, and that judgment doesn't have to wait until this certain specific time like we were talking about. Judgment's happening today. But we want to hide behind Christ like that's not happening. Just come to know Christ, which that's true, but there's still judgment that's happening. Lot knew Abraham. I don't know if necessarily Lot knew God per se, but I think he would if he walked like Abraham. Judgment still happened. So we got to be careful there. All right, someone close us in prayer and we'll get out of here.